What's up, guys? My name is Aiden, and I'm making this video right now because I want to try to make my point. I want to try to make my point. There we go. On who I think the GOAT of the NFL is, and when I really think of the GOAT of the NFL, you think of quarterbacks, or I do at least. So you can make your case on Jerry Rice being the GOAT, the best football player of all time, or Walter Payton, any of those guys. But we're going to be looking at quarterbacks and some of the greatest quarterbacks in the game. And we're going to look at all these stats that I have brought together today. I've watched a lot of film into this video, and we're going to try to statistically break down with stats and with accomplishments who the actual GOAT is. So when I think of the GOAT and I think of the greatest quarterbacks, I think of obviously you got Tom Brady and you've got Joe Montana. And then I think that Peyton Manning makes a very strong case as the GOAT. So we're going to look at his stats too. And then Drew Brees, obviously, I'm a Saints fan. I'm a lifelong Saints fan. It's from Shreveport, Louisiana. So obviously that I don't think that's biased because Drew Brees, you can't deny that he is one of the greatest to throw the ball. But we're going to look at his as well, and then I've got other players in my spreadsheet here that I will have on the screen in a minute, such as Brett Favre, Dan Marino, and John Elway. No, I don't have Aaron Rodgers on here. He is 35 years old. He's got a good 5 more years in him. That is assuming that he plays until the age of 40 like Brees and Brady have. But we're not going to be looking at him yet. He is a few years behind these guys. So, so first, I want to talk about Joe Montana. Most of the time, when it comes to the GOAT, people are looking at Joe Montana and Tom Brady, and that's the GOAT discussion, right? Now, Joe Montana, he played from 1979 to 1994. So, he was obviously way before Tom Brady's time. I never got to watch Joe Montana live. Now, I have watched a lot of his film, researching for this video, and I don't know if it's because I didn't watch him live when he was playing, but I'm not seeing what it is about Joe Montana. Yes, he was 4-0 in Super Bowls. He went to 4 Super Bowls, won them all, won Super Bowl MVP in 3 of those games, and he never threw an interception in the Super Bowl. Okay, that's great. That you can't deny that is greatness, and that he is a top 5, if not top 5. He's a top 3, top 2 quarterback of all time. But I don't think that he is the best. And the reason I say that is he was a winner, for sure. 4 Super Bowls and 4 Super Bowl wins in 4 Super Bowl appearances, 3 Super Bowl MVPs, just said that. But I do believe, okay, the spreadsheet should pop up on the screen here. As you can see over here, Joe Montana played from 1979 to 1994. His rookie season in 1979, he did not even pass for 100 yards. Okay, he didn't play in 1979. 1980 was his first year playing. In 1980, he played 4 games, and that was when he first started to go off, right? And then in 1981 was his first full season as a starter for the 49ers. So he did start in 1979, but he played from the early 80s to the mid 90s. Okay. Now Dan Marino and John Elway at the bottom of this spreadsheet, you can see that they played from 1983 to 1999, Dan Marino, and 1998 in John Elway. So they played for the same amount of time, the early 80s to the late 90s. They played a little bit longer than Joe Montana by 2 to 3 years. But if you look over here on the yards, I have the highest of each of these categories by quarterback highlighted in green and the lowest in red. And Joe Montana, out of all these great players, actually barely hit 40,000 passing yards in his career, 40,551 passing yards. Now, Dan Marino played in the same era. People say Joe Montana was in a running era of the game. No, he was not. He was only 4 years behind or in front of Dan Marino and John Elway. And Dan Marino has 20,000 more yards than Joe Montana in his career, and John Elway has 10,000 more yards in his career. Now, Dan Marino obviously won MVP in 1984 with 5,000 yards, the first player to ever do that. But he was 0-1 in Super Bowls. He went to the Super Bowl that year in 1984, and he lost. But so Dan Marino, to me, he is one of the greatest players to ever play the game, but he is not the GOAT. So I only brought him in here, him and Elway, to try to debunk Joe Montana. Dan Marino was 0-1 in Super Bowls, and he won 1 MVP. John Elway was 2-3. He went to 5 Super Bowls, only winning the last 2. So he lost his first 3 Super Bowl appearances, and John Elway actually had 0 MVP. So they are not here for that reason to be the GOAT. They are in here to try to prove. Dan Marino also had way more touchdowns than Joe Montana, and John Elway had about 30. He had 27 more touchdowns than Joe Montana. Now, so Joe Montana, he was great. I'm not saying that at all, that he wasn't. He's just not the greatest. He was great. He's not the greatest. Obviously, one of the best players, but it's just crazy to me. He had Jerry Rice at his disposal, only put up 40,000 passing yards in those years, when Dan Marino put up 61,000. When he did play a few more years, don't get me wrong, but I just believe that Dan Marino was the better player than Joe Montana, but Joe Montana had Ronnie Lott, he had Jerry Rice, he had that great defense. Joe Montana's great. He's not the GOAT, okay, with those stats that he put up. So, Joe Montana is not the GOAT. I'm going to take a look at Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, and Drew Brees. Okay, Drew Brees is not the GOAT either. I love Drew Brees, the greatest Saint to ever play the game. Drew Brees leads the league, not the league, he leads all-time passing with 74,437 yards. That is 4,000 above Tom Brady and 3,000, well, not necessarily. He broke Peyton Manning's record this year, and he is a couple of thousand ahead of him. Now, Drew Brees, he also is 19 touchdowns behind Peyton Manning with he's 19 behind him in second place. He should easily break that record next year, but that is barring some sort of career-ending injury or season-ending injury that causes him to end his career and retire. But hopefully that doesn't happen. I love Drew Brees. He does also hold. Okay, so he holds the yards. He will hold the touchdowns next year. He holds the passer rating of all time by 97.7 to Tom Brady's 97.6, and these are all-time stats, by the way. And the highest completion percentage, he is the most accurate passer of all time. He has a couple more interceptions. He has 62 more interceptions than Tom Brady in his career. That's not good in one less year played. His Super Bowl win-loss, Drew Brees has been to one Super Bowl he won. That's not the greatest. But Drew Brees has always had horrible defenses. But I can make a whole video about how Drew Brees is the GOAT and why he's better than Tom Brady and Peyton Manning and Joe Montana and all these guys. But that's not what this video is about. And that's just why Drew Brees could be the GOAT. I might make that video at some point. But right now we're talking about who is the GOAT, not who could be the GOAT. So Drew Brees has won 0 MVPs. He's had 5 years where he's passed for over 5,000 yards. Yeah, 5 years. No other player has ever passed for 5,000 yards more than one time. Tom Brady did it once. Peyton Manning did it once. Dan Marino did it first in 1984. But Drew Brees, he's done it 5 times. Pretty insane. And with no Pro Bowl receivers ever until Michael Thomas. Anyway. But Drew Brees, because he has 0 MVP awards and only 1 Super Bowl win, he is not the GOAT, okay? Moving on. So I have Brett Favre on here because I think he would be the GOAT. He's 1-1 in Super Bowls. He went back-to-back in the 90s. He won 3 consecutive MVP awards in 95, 96, and 97. And he did lead the league. He held the passing yards, passing touchdowns, and completions. He held all those records of all time until Peyton Manning broke those records. And Peyton Manning broke those records, and now Drew Brees is breaking those records. But he has 336 interceptions in his career. That is absurd. That is almost over twice as many as Tom Brady has in his career. And we'll talk about Tom Brady in a second. Now, so Brett Favre, I do think he'd be the GOAT. He had 3 MVPs, but those interceptions killed him. It's just horrible. So it's definitely not Brett Favre. It's not Montana. It's not Brees. So to me, when it comes down to the GOAT conversation, it comes down to Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, and Joe Montana. But I already talked about Joe Montana. Now, Peyton Manning makes a strong case as the greatest quarterback to ever play the game. And I think he's not talked about enough. He held all of those records. He had the passing yards record, the passing touchdowns record, the pass completions record. He held all of those. He broke them from Brett Favre until Brees is starting to break them now. But the difference between Manning and Brees, Manning went to 4 Super Bowls over Brees' 1, and Manning won 2 of those out of Brees' 1. So even though Peyton Manning is 2-2 in the Super Bowl, he has 2 Super Bowl wins, one of those losses to Drew Brees. But he has 2 Super Bowl wins, and he has a all-time leading 5 MVPs. He won this MVP award in 2003, 2004, 2008, 2009, and 2013. 2013 with the Broncos being insane. He won those first 4 as a Colt. And he played from 98 to 2015. So he is only 3 years ahead of Brees and Brady. 2 ahead of Brady, 3 ahead of Brees. And he retired a couple years ago after winning the Super Bowl against Carolina in 2015. Super Bowl 50 was his last game. And Peyton Manning with those 5 MVPs and all those over 70,000 passing yards, the second player to ever do so. Over 500 passing touchdowns, the second player to ever do so. And I just think that Peyton Manning is very overlooked. His 2 Super Bowl wins and 2 Super Bowl losses is really what hurts him, because Brady, obviously, too many rings for one hand. He has 6 Super Bowl rings, and he's still going strong. The man's 41. He'll be 42 this August, I believe, and he looks better than ever. That's another reason, durability. Brady, he's the greatest. He is one of the greatest ever. 3 MVP awards, one of them coming from last season. The least amount of interceptions out of all of these great players. He only has 171, less than 200. His pass rating only 0.1 behind Drew Brees's. His completion percentage 64. That's pretty dang good. And what is really crazy about Tom Brady, he's over 70,000 passing yards now, the 4th player to ever do so. And over 500 touchdowns, the 4th player to ever do so. But he's going to, with him and Brees, if Brees retires and Brady plays one more year than Brees, these are Brady's records. They're his. If they retire at the same time, they're most likely Brees's. If Brady retires first, they are Brees's records. But Brady, even in second place with all of these records, Brady, as much as I hate to say it, he is the GOAT. Brady, his postseason success is really what it is. So I'm going to bring up some images in a second to show you guys how great in the playoffs Tom Brady really is. Okay, so the first thing that comes with Brady's success is all-time winning percentage. So I'll pop this up on the screen. And his winning percentage all-time, now this is including the postseason. Without the postseason, only regular season, it is still over .700. But including his postseason record, his all-time winning percentage is over .750, only behind Otto Graham. When Otto Graham didn't even play 100 games. What's insane about this is Tom Brady played 300 games, and he's still going. He's played 300 total games, and he wins 3 out of 4 of them. That's just absolutely insane. In his entire career, he's never regressed. The man is the GOAT. And then now, here I'll have another one come up on the screen. Postseason wins. Brady has played in 40 career postseason games, the most of all time. He's won 30 of them. 3 out of 4, once again. Now, Joe Montana has only won 16 career postseason games. Sure, Joe Montana's 4-0 in the playoffs, or not in the playoffs, 4-0 in the Super Bowl. Brady is 6-3 in the Super Bowl. Brady's won 6 rings. He's still going. I don't think he's going to retire with 6 rings. He'll retire with 7, 8. No. He'll retire with more than 6 rings, guys. Tom Brady is absolute. I'm not necessarily even a Tom Brady fan. I respect the man, and I think he's the GOAT. Tom Brady is better than Joe Montana. He's better than Peyton Manning. He's better than Drew Brees. He's better than Brett Favre. He's better. Tom Brady is better, and he is the greatest to ever throw the football. Now, the reason I say this is because, well, Tom Brady, with his career stats, leading in passing it, well, not leading, he will or he will be second. Over 70,000 passing yards, over 500 touchdowns, all those being in the top 3 in all of those categories, completion percentage, completions, everything. The lowest, not the lowest, but the lowest of most of the greats in interceptions. All of those stats, Drew Brees has all those stats. Drew Brees is the stat king, the king of consistency, and Tom Brady has matched that. But Tom Brady also has all of the Super Bowl rings. He's 6-3 in the postseason success, the 30 wins, the over .770 winning percentage all time, and just all that postseason success that Joe Montana had, combined with all of the regular season success and all of his records that Peyton Manning and Drew Brees had, just makes him the greatest ever, and that is my opinion. Go ahead, you guys, comment down below what you think of who the GOAT is after all this information, and let me know who you think the GOAT is, whether you agree with me or disagree. I understand that some people will disagree with me. This is just what I think, looking at all these stats. And while you're down there, go ahead and drop some other video ideas I could do. It could be just NFL related, or it could be Saints related. I kind of do want to make a video on why Drew Brees could be the GOAT. He's not the GOAT, like, not why he is the GOAT, but why he could be. Anyway, Tom Brady's the GOAT, and that's what I got to say. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe for more videos like this. I plan to keep making these type of videos, and go ahead and comment down below what other type of videos I could do, like in this relate. Give me some topics, and I'll do them, whatever it takes. Go ahead and drop that like and tell me what you guys think.